so set my feet on the ladder of trade, for my father had not returned from his last voyage years back, and my mother, after the custom of the traders, had married again within 2 years and followed her new mate elsewhere. So I had no one to speak up for me at the time of assignment. Our captain was Urban Foss, well regarded as a coming man, though young and sometimes thought to be a shade reckless. But that suited his crew, who were willing to have a leader who might by some gamble advance them well into the ranks of those who had solid credit at the trade center. Juhel Liege was the cargo master, and my only quarrel with him, though he was no light taskmaster, was that he guarded some of his trade secrets jealously, leaving me to ferret hints for myself. But perhaps that was the best way of training, putting me ever on the alert when I was on duty, and giving me opportunity to think much when I was not being official. We had made 2 good voyages before we landed on Yiktor, and undoubtedly we felt that we were perhaps better than we were. However, caution is never forgotten on a free trader. After we planeted, before we opened hatches, Foss had us all in to listen to the guide tape carrying all the warnings for this world. The only port, such as it was, for this was truly a frontier world, lay outside Yirjar, a city as far as Yiktor knew cities, in the middle of a large northern landmass. We had timed our arrival carefully for the Great Trade Fair, a meeting of merchants and populace from all over the entire planet, held at 2 planet years intervals at the end of the fall harvest season. Like fairs on many other worlds, this gathering had once had, and still possessed as a pallid shadow, religious significance, being the supposed date when an ancient folk hero had met and vanquished some demoniacal enemy to save his people, died as a result of his exertions, and thereafter been entombed with pomp. The people still enacted a kind of play of this feat, followed by games in which the lords vied with one another, each backing his personal champions. The winners of each contest carried off enough awards and prestige, not for himself alone, but also for his patron, to last until the next fair. Chapter 2. The government of Yiktor was at the feudal stage. Several times in its history, kings and conquerors had risen to unite whole continents under their sway for perhaps their lifetimes. This unification sometimes extended into the following generation, or maybe 2, but eventually fell apart through quarrels of the nobles. The pattern had held constant with no advancement. The priests, though, had vague traditions that there had been an earlier civilization which had risen to a position of greater stability and technical knowledge. No one knew the reason for the stagnation at this step of civilization, and no native appeared to care or to believe there could be another way of life. We had arrived during one of the periods of chaos wherein 6 lords snapped and snarled at one another, but none had backing, audacity, luck, or whatever was demanded of a leader to take over. Thus, the existing balance of power was a delicate thing. This meant for us traders brain lock, weapon lock, nuisances though they were, and much as we disliked them. Far back in free trading, for their own protection against the power of the patrol and the wrath of control, the traders themselves had realized the necessity of these 2 safeguards on primitive planets. Certain technical information was not an item to be traded, no matter how high the inducement. Arms from off-world, or the knowledge of their manufacture, were set behind a barrier of no sale. When we planeted on such a world, all weapons other than belt stunners were put into a lock stas, which would not be released until the ship rose from that Earth. We also passed a brain lock inhibiting any such information being won from us. This might seem to make us unarmed prey for any ambitious lord who might wish to wring us hard for such facts, but the law of the fair gave us complete immunity from danger, as long as we stayed within the limits set by the priests on the first day. For following almost universal galactic custom, one which appeared to be spontaneous and native to every world where such gatherings had existed for ages, the fair